What's worse, having something revolutionary that starts off strong only for its faults to cause it to fall behind the competition, or have something revolutionary that's perfect but never gets the chance to start in the first place? Quite a heavy and deeply philosophical question to start off a video about trains with, I know, but for one northeastern locomotive, it was a question that genuinely applied to them, and had an unfortunately tragic answer. By the late 1910s, the Northeastern Railway's chief mechanical engineer, Sir Vincent Raven, was a firm believer in railway electrification. Both the shunting engines and heavy freight engines he'd brought into service were not only outperforming contemporary steam engines, but were also much more reliable and economical too. I've done a video on both of these locomotives which I recommend for some more background on the Northeastern's electrification scheme. Many of Newcastle's local passenger lines were electrified too, and with the success of shunters and freight engines, Raven naturally felt it was worth taking this electrification thing up a level, and in 1920 began putting plans in place to electrify a main line and produce an electric express locomotive. It was specified that this locomotive should be able to pull a 14-carriage train weighing 450 tons at a speed of 65 miles an hour. On top of that, it should be able to start that same load on a grade of 1 in 78 and still accelerate to its running speed. The locomotive they came up with was essentially a beefed up version of the freight engines, this being a 464 design with 2 cabs, 6 foot 8 inch driving wheels, an overall length of 53 foot 6 inches and weighed 110 tons. The electrical equipment was provided by Metropolitan Vickers, and the engine was fitted with 6 300 horsepower motors, each driving axle being driven by 2 motors each. The motors could be connected in 3 different series arrangements, all 6 in series, 3 series groups of 2 parallel motors, or 2 series groups of 3 in parallel. On top of that, the driving axles were powered using geared quills, which allowed for some vertical movement on the driving wheels. It was also fitted with compressed air sanders on each driving wheel, an electric boiler for carriage heating, 2 whistles and electric headlights. The final result was a very blocky looking engine compared to its crocodile-esque counterparts, one that cost the railway £27,767, well in excess of the original £20,000 limit. It was numbered 13, with 1 and 2 being the original shunters and 3 to 12 being the 10 freight engines, and delivered in 1922. As no progress had been made on electrifying the main line, number 13 was trialled on the Shildon to Newport branch line that its coal-hauling cousins ran on. The exact results of these trials are unknown, but given the success of its predecessors and the fact it was considered the most powerful electric locomotive in Europe at the time, it's fair to assume it didn't disappoint. Its design specification to be able to climb and start on grades is noteworthy, as the route it was intended to work on, the main line between York and Newcastle, had relatively shallow grades. It's not known why Raven made this a priority in the locomotive's design, but it was likely a way of future-proofing the engine should the electrification plan succeed and the route be extended further towards Edinburgh where the grades became steeper. Whatever the results of the trial were, however, it didn't seem to matter to the railway company. Thanks to the First World War, the Northeastern Railway's finances were in poor condition, and the railway ended up merging into the London Northeastern Railway less than a year later in 1923. Mainline electrification was put on hold while the company was getting its affairs in order, and number 13 was put to one side. With a whole fleet of steam express engines to choose from on top of Gresley's new A1s proving to be impeccable passenger machines, it made little sense forking out to electrify one stretch of mainline for the sake of a few experimental express locomotives. Even if the route was already electrified, the overhead wires would be damaged by the smoke and steam from non-electric locomotives that frequently passed under them. And so that'd mean either spending more money on maintenance or flat out banning specific locomotives from running on that section of line. Simply put, electrification wasn't in the LNER's best interests, and as such the project was canned. Number 13 was used for publicity, appearing at many exhibitions across the country, but never actually entered revenue-earning service. The only place it could hypothetically work was the Shildon-Newport branch line that its freight counterparts worked on, but there was already too little work for all 10 of them to do in the first place, and number 13 being a unique design would have made repairs and maintenance much harder. Plus, it either would have struggled with the coal trains or simply have been overkill for the work. Eventually, it found its way to the Darlington Works paint shop where it remained for the rest of its life, eventually being joined by the freight engines when they too were retired. Despite having no practical use for it, the NER never sold or scrapped it. It's possible that it may have been part of Gresley's scheme to convert it into a diesel along with the freight engines, but this plan never came to fruition. Number 13 was eventually given the classification of EE1 in 1945, this being Electric Express, and renumbered 6999 before becoming number 26600 in 1948 when it became part of British Railways fleet. Being a unique locomotive that hadn't run in over 2 decades and with no electrified lines that could justifiably use it, the EE1 was scrapped in 1950. Whether or not the EE1 was actually any good, we'll never really know, but the fact that it was shelved without ever truly getting the chance to show its stuff is a tragedy. Given the success of its predecessors, it's a safe bet that it would have been an exceptional machine, but it remains another reminder that not everyone exceptional gets their chance to shine. So next time you see someone with potential, maybe give them a chance, as it might be the only one they'll ever get. Subscribe for more.